Okay, thank you. Are there any more general questions? It seems to be the gentleman at the back. If you want to head up there. Okay. Well, we'll take those three for now, and then we'll see how we are getting pushed for time now. So, if you want to make a shout out a question.
Okay, yeah. I just want to pick up on something you, the Conservative candidate,
Alex Williams.
You said about sending Gordon Brown a message on June the 4th. Do you think, would you agree with the statement that most people see these elections as a way of kind of a referendum on the current government in Westminster rather than actually on the issues of Europe and what you guys are going to do in the European Parliament?
Okay, and anyone, there's a gentleman just kind of in the middle there, Dan, as well, in the brown t-shirt.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the candidates expect the results of these elections to be, basically.
And that gentleman over there, Dan, as well.
I was just curious about each candidate's position on EU expansion, with various sort of Balkan countries, Turkey and other countries around the Mediterranean increasingly looking to align with Europe in trade and political affairs. I was wondering what the position was on admittance.
Okay. All right. Alex Williams, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Send a message to Gordon Brown. Well, is this election about national European issues? Well, it's a bit of both. And when I said send Gordon Brown a message, what I mean is send him a message about how he ratted on his promise on a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty, but equally send him a message about how you think he is running our country and the domestic issues of the day. And we have to be honest with ourselves that this isn't just an election where people will decide on European issues. They will will bring into their mind domestic issues. They will bring into their mind things like MPs' expenses, things like the potential rise of the British National Party. These will all be issues that they will bear in mind, and we're campaigning not just on our strong record in the European Parliament, what we want to do in the next Parliament, but also what we think the failings of Gordon Brown are. What do I expect the results to be? I do, touch wood, expect a strong result for the Conservative Party. I won't say how many MEPs we're going to elect in the North West. I think under the system it does become very close between the parties for the 7th and 8th seats, the way it's calculated, so it remains to be seen, but I do very strongly hope that Nick Griffin isn't one of those MEPs that's returned on June the 4th. On EU expansion, the Conservative Party and our delegation of the Parliament have been very supportive of EU expansion because we want to see a wider European Union, not a deeper one. But there's some strong caveats to that. We think there should be very high requirements and conditions of entry on new countries that they need to meet before they can become members, and we'd like to see those rigorously enforced. And secondly, I'd like to make sure that a wider Europe doesn't become a more bureaucratic Europe, and one where we get more and more diseconomies of scale resulting that make the European Union even more unpopular than it is today.
I think inevitably the elections are, in every country, are seen in two respects. First of all, they're seen as a referendum on do we like Europe or do we not, rather than what is the actual work of the European Parliament. And secondly, they're a reflection of national circumstances. Do we like the government or do we not? That is the case everywhere. You're completely right, they certainly won't be on what the European Parliament does. And there was a real difficulty there because the European Parliament is not an executive body. It's not a council that puts up your tax and delivers services. It's not a government that controls taxes and delivers services. It's an assembly that reforms legislation, amends legislation. And you can't throw the rascals out. You can't promise, if you get elected, I will do this, because the Parliament is only 1/3 of the European decision-making process. It's odd, though, because I've been in the House of Commons, I've been in the European Parliament, and I can say now, as an ordinary member of Parliament, you can do vastly more in Brussels in the European Parliament than you can sitting on the back benches in the House of Commons. There's just a greater, because the whole process allows you to have a greater input into decision-making and law-making. But there we are. As for the result, Well, there's 8 members in the northwest. So just let you know, last time round, the Conservatives elected, last time round it was 9, and we've gone down from 9 to 8 because Europe's expanded and we've controlled the numbers a bit. So I think last time round, Conservatives elected 3, and I think this time they'll elect 4. I think, just look at the opinion polls. Labour elected 3. I think they'll be lucky to hold on to that. I think they'll go down to 2. Liberal Democrats elected 2. I think we'll elect 2 again. Didn't think that a couple of weeks ago, but looking at the opinion polls, and I think we'll do that. So last time UKIP elected 1, but where they're massively down in the opinion polls. But you think about that: 3 Conservatives, 3 Labour, 2 Liberal Democrats. Well, maybe that'll be it. Maybe that'll be the results. 4. If it's 4-2-2, then there'll be no UKIP and no BNP. But we all know that might not be the case. So there's a last seat to be fought for there, and either the Conservatives won't win it, or we won't win it, or Labour won't win it, or UKIP won't win it. I mean, just not quite sure about that last seat. That's the one that most people are actually looking at. Finally, interesting question on expansion. Iceland is now applying to join the EU. Most of EU laws are already incorporated into Icelandic legislation because it's in the economic area. Iceland could join quite quickly if it wanted to. It would meet the criteria. Turkey, I've always been a supporter of Turkey joining if it can meet the criteria, human rights and the like. Reforms are taking place much more slowly than I would wish. And it's quite obvious that France and Germany are determined to stop it joining. So I think that the politics has moved. I don't think Turkey is going to join. But we still want to try and bring the Balkan states. They're small, they're manageable, and frankly, I'd rather they were in the European Union, where we can solve disputes between member states by setting up a subcommittee, than we end up having another round of Balkan wars and bloodshed. And finally, no, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay. Just on the note of that second question, I have actually got here a poll by UKIP, which I think was done this weekend. And we've actually got in the north, we have the Conservatives on 33%, Labour on 25%, the Lib Dems on 27%, UKIP on 7%, and the Greens on, UKIP on 6%, and the Greens on 3%. But not to worry. The BNP? Oh, the BNP is actually, it's on 6%, so it might be worth going out. If you do want to vote as well, be sure to fill in a registration form, which is available just by the door on your way out. Ruth.
Yeah, do people see the EU elections as a referendum on the UK government? Well, I think inevitably all of the coverage of the expenses issues is going to influence how people vote. It was very interesting to hear Norman Tebbit calling for people to boycott the 3 main parties. I hope that people will look a bit at what Europe does and what it means to people in the UK, and I think it would be good to see more media coverage of that. I think there's been very little so far, and I think it's a huge shame that we focused on expenses and that there's been so little coverage of what's happening in Europe. What do I expect the results to be? I really don't know, and I wouldn't like to try and predict that. We're certainly hoping that we might get that last place, and that the BNP don't get it. On European expansion, yes, in principle we're open to Turkey and Serbia joining, but they have to meet human rights standards on democracy. I work with a women workers cooperative that are trying to form a trade union in Turkey at the moment, and they're facing huge opposition from the government. So we really need them to be much more open to that kind of work, and to address issues in Cyprus, and to address issues for Kurdish people living in the east of the country. But yeah, in principle, I think we should be open to them joining.